I think I've mentioned before my affinity for listening to or watching uh, reactor videos on YouTube where people are reacting to various songs, comedy, skits, TV shows, movies, whatever. And here of late, in watching those, I've run into several where they were reacting to Jason Aldean's song Try That in a Small Town. I'm a music fan. I'm a fan of virtually all types of music, so it's nothing new for me to be listening to a little bit of country and a little bit of jazz and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Even in the same hour, never mind the same day or the same week. Now, there have been, and oddly enough, none of the reactors seem to see it this way, but there have been those who have complained that that song is racist. And I'm not here to discuss whether that song is racist or not. I'm not even here to discuss the song, really. Racism may be in the eye of the beholder, just like beauty, or for that matter, ugly. Uh, some people may see something as racist that other people just go, no. Now, I live in a small town. I live in a small town that, while it isn't heavily racially mixed, we do have a pretty hefty white majority in town. I got to admit that. But we do also have quite a bunch of Hispanics. And we have, at least that I know of, one that are actually mixed race. The man is black, the woman is white. Their kids, of course, then are half and half. And I had a couple of their kids in my classes when I was still teaching. Great kids, great people. Okay. I can guarantee you that if you were to attack one of those kids, they have a daughter who is very outgoing, cheerful girl, bright enough, heck of an athlete. And if you were to, say, for instance, molest her in some way, nobody would stop and say, well, no, but she's half black, we don't care. Her dad's black, let him worry about it. We're not that racist. In fact, I would say if you messed with that girl in the wrong way in this town, here's the way you want to pray. Do not let the people of the town get me before her dad does. And do not let her dad get me before the sheriff does. Because if the sheriff gets you, you're going to get a fair trial. If her dad gets you, you're probably going to get dead, but quickly. If the community gets you, oh, brother, we're going to kill you so bad you're going to wish you were dead. It's just that simple. So, it's not a racist thing to stand by each other. But I'm not trying to defend Jason Aldean's song either. If you see it as racist, fine, you see it as racist. I may think you're wrong. In fact, I do, but that's beside the point. But I'm not here to talk about the song itself anyway. I'm not really here to talk about my town. Sometime back, and so hunt as I did, I could not find the reference, but I had read a story, and it wasn't fiction, it was a news story that I think is try that in a small town any way you want to cut it. And how this worked out. Guy came out of big city. I'm not going to say what state, but since I believe this happened in Arizona, I think he may have come out of California. You know, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, I don't know. But one of the big towns, probably in California because of the situation. You know, my memory saying this happened in a little town in Arizona. But he had been in the habit in his big city of making his living by robbing liquor stores, convenience stores, supermarkets even, gas stations, whatever. Well, he had felt like that the police were getting a little too close, so he decided to take his leave of his city and go elsewhere. Coming across Arizona, as I recall, came into a little town, and I can't remember which little town it was. There's a lot of little towns in Arizona anyway. This one was not, as I recall, on the reservation. You know, because the Navajo reservation does take up a fair-sized chunk of northeastern Arizona. And there are other reservations that take up portions of Arizona, but this I don't believe was on a reservation. But it was a small town along whatever highway he was on, which I would think Interstate 10, but who knows. Like I said, I don't remember all the details. I'm thinking it was Arizona. I'm not even absolutely certain of that, but he decided, well, you know, he looked at his cash reserves and there wasn't much. So he pulled into a convenience store. There was one old beat up pickup parked out in the parking lot, and an old beat up car parked out back that probably belonged to the cashier. So this wasn't going to be any big deal, a couple people inside, and this should be a pretty easy deal. So he walks in, walks up to the cash register, pulls a gun, tells the cashier, don't go getting noisy about this, just empty out the cash register. Well, you know, because he didn't want the other customer ordered, because he might manage to get out the door, and in spite of being an armed robber by trade, he really didn't want to kill anybody if he didn't have to. Well, he's got his attention on the cashier, who has opened the cash drawer and is starting to put money in a bag just like he was told. And he feels something very hard and cold behind his right ear. and the customer behind him says, you can put the gun down and back away from that counter, or your brains can be splattered all over that wall over there. Oddly enough, he put the gun down and backed away with the guy holding the other gun behind his ear there. Well, he had forgotten, and this was far enough back that open carry and even unpermitted, or constitutional concealed carry wasn't a big thing around the country. But Arizona is a different matter. They did have both open carry and constitutional carry at the time. Well, the guy that was in the old beat up pickup, the other customer that was in, or the real customer that was in there, was just a local rancher. He just came in to get a few things. But being a local rancher, and being as there are rattlesnakes all over Arizona, he carried a gun. He carried the gun primarily to defend himself from rattlesnakes. But when he looked up and it kind of, in a reflection from some signage or something behind the counter there, saw that this guy was robbing the store, he just slipped up and put an end to the robbery. This is what we're talking about here. Try that in a small town. You might rob these places with dozens of people in the store in LA or San Diego or San Francisco or Phoenix or Las Vegas or, wherever. But middle of nowhere Arizona, middle of nowhere Kansas, middle of nowhere Oklahoma, Texas. No. It ain't happening, Jack. If there's one customer in the store, you got to consider they may very well be carrying, and they will not let you get away with robbing their neighbor.